Good morning, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The time is now 10 minutes after the 8 o'clock hour, Professor. All right. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
John.
Morning. Nice to be here.
Okay. Hold a second. Okay,
Audio
that's
not so
better.
good?
Hi. Perfect.
Yes,
morning,
good.
Professor. How are you?
I'm fine and good to be here.
So
Russell, you are fine?
for the time being, but not as fine as a grain of sand to be blown away.
That's important.
It's a pleasure having you. For those of you who don't know Professor Richard Robertson, he's a professor of geology at the UWI St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago. But he is of Vincentian, born and bred. And he was, well, this is not the term that you were referred to, but off the top of my head, Mr. Volcano. During the volcanic eruption of 2020, you were a pillar, you know.
Well, it's all right. We try our best.
Yes. But it was very comforting having you at that time, sharing all the information that was necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was an interesting time. So I mean, in fact, that's why I'm here, as you know, to speak about sort of ongoing work and trying to get the information about what happened to people in St. Vincent. So we have in this conference, as you know, in March. And I just, hopefully we'll get to chat a little bit about it today.
Right. So that's where what we're gonna do. So the conference is called Explosions, Ash and Lahars Conference. Mm-hmm. So you can start off by telling us the purpose.
Right. So it's really, lots of times when things like volcanoes erupt, as ours did, lots of scientists, people who monitor volcanoes, people who study volcanoes, would get involved as happened, and in fact, those scientists are very important in terms of how the information and advice we provided and we used in terms of responding to the eruption. But after the eruption is done, there's a lot of papers, scientific research has gone on, lots of scientific papers gets written, and often those papers gets published in scientific journals, which if you're not a scientist or if you're not somebody in academia, often you don't see them. And one of the things that we wanted to do, certainly with this eruption, is to try to get as much as the information available and make it available to people in St. Vincent. So we've organized this conference, this scientific conference. We're collaborating with the Open Campus, University Open Campus. It's a country conference, and we also collaborating with the National Emergency Management Organization to invite scientists and both people from overseas, but I'd like to speak about people also from St. Vincent, who have been looking at eruption, have experienced what has happened, and can speak about different aspects of the eruption. So this conference is really an attempt to provide an avenue for people who are doing research on the volcano, who have done research on the volcano, particularly the 2021 eruption, to present what they have discovered, what they have learned. And indirectly, it also provides an avenue for Vincentians. Anybody in St. Vincent can attend the meeting to learn about what has been discovered. So if you really want to know about what the scientists have learned about the eruption, what they think has happened, what they thought happened, what it means for the future, this is a meeting that you want to try to link into. And just before I forget, the dates are the 29th and the 30th of March, 2023. So in about 2 or 3 months time, close to the end of March, that's the timing. And it's at the Open Campus. It's walking distance in the middle of Kingstown. You just walk up, make sure you register beforehand. Also, even if you don't register beforehand, you could come on the day itself and register and come and listen to what's happening. It's only one day, so if you missed the day of the presentation, you've missed it. So you want to make sure that you link into it. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the talks that we're probably going to have.
Okay, so if you're not able to physically make it, but you want to be a part of it,
right,
is there a way to join virtually?
Yes, it's going to be it's going to use a hybrid format because some of the presenters actually might be people who are overseas and can't attend physically. So there will be a mechanism for you to join virtually and link into the presenters. But again, you'll have to go onto the website. You'll have to register beforehand so that you could get that link. It's only people who are registered would have access to the link to see to participate in the meeting. So it's important that you register. It's important that you find out about when it's happening, what's happening, and how you do that. So yes, you can use it, you can link into it, but you'll have to register.
Okay. So how do we register?
Right. So you'll have to go currently. One of the main ways that you register is by going on to the UE Seismic website. I can share the link at some point. But
Mhm.
if you go onto the UE Seismic website, which is the UE Seismic website is actually uwisseismic.com, and then go to the news section, you then see a link to the Explosions, Ash, and Lahars conference. And when you read down the material, when you read that page, there's a link at the bottom that says that tells you how to register. Um,
Oh,
it's probably I'm actually looking at the site now and realize it's a little bit buried. It says all presenting authors must register for the conference. But even if you're not a presenting author, you can still register. I think we need to change that slightly. It's not only authors, not only presenters should register. Anybody that wants to attend should register here. In addition, we'd make these. If you want to register, I believe we'll have a mechanism where people in St. Vincent could perhaps just walk into open campus and go into Nemo and fill out a form. Well, we haven't set that up yet, but that would be another mechanism for doing it. Currently, it could do it through the link online, but we'll set up a mechanism for doing it locally also.
okay, wonderful. Now, I read that there's a part where persons, if they're interested in sharing stories and
Right.
experiences, let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a scientific conference, so it has the formal section. Usually in scientific conferences, if you want to present, you would have to submit an what we call an abstract, which is really just a brief summary of what you plan to speak about. And once you submitted that abstract, we then can slot you into the program. So if people had, we're looking for experiences too. If people had, and I'm talking about trying to share information about what happened during the eruption. If you had that and you wanted to share that, then you still have to do a little summary and tell us that you're doing it so we can slot you into the program. But we also encouraging, we're hoping that quite apart from sort of individual experiences like that, we're hoping that we'll get presentations from people like the utility companies. How did they manage that? Even people like your good self in the media industry. How did you manage that experience and sharing that experience? And but the fundamental thing is that if you want to do that, you still will have to tell us that you wish to do that so we could see how we could fit you into the program. It would be impossible given the short space of time that we have. We only have a day we do this for you to simply just walk in. I mean, that's probably going to happen because if you come into the meeting and as these meetings go, they're very interactive. So when somebody give a presentation, somebody might stand up and give a comment, and the comments could go off into sharing experiences. And I suspect that's going to happen. So we're not going to stop that, because what we're trying to do is to both give people an opportunity to understand what has happened from in terms of what the scientists understand what has happened, what it means for the future, but also the scientists themselves would like to hear about the people's experience. So if you come along and do that, we'll see how we could facilitate that. But again, I'll encourage you to register. If you want to have a formal slot in the program, you need to put in a summary of what you want to talk about, and we'll see how we could facilitate that.
Okay, lovely. So some of the presenters that you already have lined up
Yeah.
to speak.
Right. So we already have people who are going to talk about aspects of the monitoring. As we know, the volcano erupted and there was changing in shape of the mountain. Yeah, the mountain basically responded to the magma coming in. So we'll have presentations on that. We have presentations that are going to talk about the ash and where it went, where it was, where the material went that came out of the volcano. We're going to have presentations on the lahars, all the mud flows that's happening now, in fact. There are studies that are ongoing on that. And there are studies that suggest to us how much, say, rainfall you might have that would then trigger a lahar. We also have presenters from people who have looked at how people perceive the risk. We actually have local people who have looked at risk perception, and we have presentations from that. We'll have also presentations that speak about eruption generally and how it was monitored and how it was managed. So there's a range of things that you're going to have. We're encouraging as much as possible for both people outside of St. Vincent who have done research in the volcano, as well as people on St. Vincent. You don't have to be a scientist. You could be somebody who is a manager for, or is a worker at one of the forestry or one of the utility companies, and you might want to tell us how your agency responded to the eruption, what effect it had, for example. If you're interested in what effect it had in flora and fauna, what effect it had on agriculture. So we're hoping that, I mean, one of the reasons I'm on this program is really to encourage local presenters to register, to give us a summary of what you would like to present, because I think we're trying to capture as much as we can and share as much as we can all aspects of what happened, and a lot of what the experience was in the island is one of the key aspects of it. Not only what these geologists and volcanologists would have discovered, who are mainly based overseas like myself.
Right. Are you sure that could fit into one day?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm encouraging people to do it. We do have an option of some sort of extension, but we'll see. If it looks like it can't fit into one day, then we'll have to see how we could shift things and probably extend it further. But I mean, but we need to see what we have. We can't really wait until March to then people then say they want to say. And I suspect that's what did happen. We all wait until the last minute and then decide this is what we want to do. The deadline for the abstract submission was last week. We've extended it this week. We're probably going to extend it again to next week to give people a chance to say what they want to say what they want to present. If by next week, depending on how much abstracts we have, we'll see whether it fits into one day or if we have to extend it a little bit more. We actually have slotted in 2 days of activities, but the second day we intend to do field trips, especially for people who are coming from afar, because just coincidentally, the conference is being held soon after another workshop, a major regional workshop that we actually have in St. Vincent that's going to happen. So we want to have a field trip for the overseas participants mainly. But if it is that we see that we have so much that people want to say, that we could probably have a half morning where people just come and share their experiences. That's possible. But you need to tell us. You need to send in, tell us what you want to say so that we could see if it's possible.
Okay. If persons joined late, I know I put the link in the Facebook Live comment section there so they can click on it. Is there any way that they could reach out to you outside of the registering through the website? Maybe they might want a little bit more information.
Yeah. I think you could send an email to the Seismic website, Seismic email. I'll give you an email. There's an src@sta.uwi.edu. Let me see if I could, as well as I mean, I guess you could send it to there's a conference. There's a conference email that's called Soufriere Conference 2023. So SOUFRIERE Conference, CONFERENCE, all one word, @gmail.com. Soufriere Conference 2023 @gmail.com. You send queries there, somebody would respond, and we'll as much as you can. As well as you could just simply phone. Well, I don't think you want to phone Seismic. These days people don't use phones and all that. But you could send a note to any of those email addresses and somebody will respond to it. So src@uwi.edu is the Seismic email, as well as Soufriere Conference 2023 @gmail. You could use any one of those. As well as you could probably just walk into, you could see if you could speak to someone at NEMO. You could speak to, you could go into NEMO and ask them if they have any information, or ask them how they could contact someone, as well as Open Campus. They're both collaborating with us on this, so they should have information that they might be able to share.
Right. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for
Yeah,
persons who have not yet heard or know sorry about the experiences from, for example, somebody who's working at Vinlex, somebody who's working at CWSA, or maybe just a random person, how
yeah,
the volcanic eruption impacted them and what they had to do. Because while many people were close to a bit like close to 20,000, between 18 and
yeah.
20,000 people were evacuating, there were individuals in between there who would have had to like come out to assist. So it'll be interesting to hear persons' experiences. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
yeah. I
to it.
mean, it for me, I'd like to. I mean, I'm a scientist, so I'd like to hear what sort of kind of get the utilities and the government agencies who might have reports, who might have experiences to share. But if it is that the sort of the general public had, people who have experiences of the evacuation of life in shelters, if they wanted to share information, I think if there's sufficient interest, we could probably have a half morning in which we could just tell people to come in and they could talk about things. But we need to know that there's enough interest in that to arrange it. You don't want to set aside time and space, and next thing you don't have anybody come in. People often, unfortunately, like to hide behind their anonymous numbers and not necessarily put their face up. But maybe they might want to. So we'd encourage them. If you think you want to share some experience of the eruption there, and you just drop us a note, and we'll see how we could arrange a program to facilitate that.
Right, right, right. Hopefully, this conversation will encourage as many people
Yeah,
as possible. Now, I'm not sure if you're able to share at this time. I remember in the early weeks after the volcanic eruption, just segueing just a little bit here,
yeah, that's
you
fine.
had said that we should be expecting quite a number of lahars within the next 2 years.
Yeah.
From what you have seen, are we still in line with that 2 year mark? Or do you think that it's going to be maybe 1 year instead of a year and a half, maybe the next 3 years?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd answer it this way. From what I can see, there's still quite a bit of material at the summit to come down. So, and there's still a substantial part of the volcano that is not revegetated. And the thing that's going to drive the material coming down slope and providing the material that goes into lahars, essentially a lot of it is still there. So the timeline for continued lahar activity may extend more than I would suspect, rather than less than, because this year is 2 years, since the eruption. So we're in the third year now.
Hold on,
Um,
hold on. 2021.
2021 is when it
Oh
finished.
my,
Yes, you see, it's flying, isn't it? Yes,
already?
yeah,
I
and
can't believe it.
exactly. So, and I think the lahars are still happening. They're probably more dilute, more runny, and more like flooded rivers now, rather than very big blocky stuff. Because a lot of the material that's coming down now is more finer material. But once we have rainfall, and we always have rainfall in this basin, you have plenty of rainfall, you're going to have problems with lahars. Fortunately, I see the bridges are being built. I don't think they're finished yet, but that would help things. But it's gonna be an ongoing problem until the top of the volcano gets properly vegetated. There's still thick deposits up there. But at the summit, you have things that are over a meter and too high in terms of new stuff to come down. And once the rain falls, it's gonna keep coming. So unfortunately, I think we have a longer rather than a shorter time to deal with that problem.
No, you have me here. I don't know how high a meter is.
Okay, so it's about 3 or 4. Well, let's say about 2 feet, 2 or 3 feet, close to 3 feet. Yeah,
So that like about this,
yeah, yeah. So
like a little over
basically,
that.
you have deposit at the summit that would, if you're somebody that is very short, you could go down in the valley, and the top of your head is is below where how thick the deposits are. I mean, to give you an example, I was on the volcano, I think last time I was here, and we went up with a young person, and we had to stay on the volcano for a long time. And because it's very rainy and very windy, they were able to shelter in one of those areas where the deposits is quite thick, quite well, because it's so thick. So they were able to sort of cover and get a little bit of break from the wind because they were able to go down into one of these gullies. And so it's quite a lot of material up there. And I think people get fooled by the fact that, yes, the vegetation has gone up quite a substantial amount, but there's a point at which, because of the conditions up there, the vegetation is having a hard time to creep up further. And what the vegetation does is that it stabilizes the loose material, so reduce the chances of it getting washed out when rain comes. But if it's not there, and at the top, I will say the top 1/3, probably a little bit, probably top quarter or 1/3 of the volcano still is very bare all the way around. So you're talking about all the way around from the east to the west. There's nothing on it. So when rain falls, it just strips the material off. So yeah, I've tried to get down into some of the valleys at the top of the volcano, and they're too deep to get into. That's how much material they have. So
That's a lot.
it's quite a
And
lot to come.
there's nothing that can be done like man-made wise to assist
Well,
them. It just has to be very
yeah.
natural.
Well, I think nature is moving faster than quite fast in terms of the vegetation, the process of revegetating the land. I mean, you could see it. It's just that the deposits quite close to the top is so thick. There are things that you could do. You might probably be able to do to increase the process, but I think the natural process is actually going quite fast. It's just that there is so much ash at the top, so much material that was produced this time versus the last time, that it's going to take a couple of years. I would say more tens of years than 2 or 3 years for it to become stable. And now we have a different kind of crater. The crater is quite open. There's a lot of material in it. Remember the crater before, you had to climb down a rope to get to it. Now you have so much material that you could walk into it.
Really?
So that, again, yes, really. So it gives the impression of how much stuff is up there to come down. You basically have a lot of loose stuff to come down. So,
All right, somebody wants to join the conversation. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Interesting. Good morning to you, Professor Robertson.
morning.
Yeah, I'm here listening to you for a while. You take me to the Northern Hemisphere, to those cool countries where not so long ago a glacier came down and did a lot of destruction, killed some people, Can't remember which country it is. But as you speak of the thick deposit at the summit of the volcano, I am thinking for people, well, I don't know what the advice is now. People can feel free to go up there and visit. But what I'm thinking of is that with this thick deposit at the summit, isn't the possibility of it, if let's say you go up there, this thing can crack or break and this thing can come down? Does it only mean that with time, you're saying that water, the rain and so on? I'm just thinking if it's not possible to, with such thick deposit, if it can break down, break and come down like a glass sheet, for some reason. That's that's my curiosity. Thank you.
No, I hear you, and it's always possible that instead of coming down incrementally, basically small pieces at a time, as it is currently, that a large part of it can come down. I don't think it will be as big as sort of, in glacier areas, the ice is frozen, so the material is moving as one. In this case, what it is loose fragments that once you start tearing away some, a little bit more will come. So it hardly ever would move as a big mass. The big masses, the big blocks and boulders have already come down, which is what caused a lot of the damage in Sandy Bay and places like that. When you had all that earlier on, we had all those big blocks that came down. Those big blocks have already come down. What you have now is more loose material that would tend to come down in increments, in smaller increments, so that they would continue to cause a problem. But the problem would be them making the rivers more swollen and thicker and more erosive and more able to do more damage, rather than big blocks that came down before. So it's always possible that large fragments will come down, but I think it's more likely for it to keep on coming down incrementally as it's doing now, and not necessarily like how you see in those areas where you have glaciers where it's thick blocks of ice that is single masses. Those masses have already gone, and they have already done the damage.
Okay, so it's 8:34. We have just about 8 or so minutes left because we have to stop to take in
Yeah,
some commercials and so on, and then you have other obligations.
yeah.
So in terms of safety of going up to the volcano,
Right.
could you speak about that?
Right. Actually, he touched on that. I'm glad for bringing it back. I think, as far as I know, the official word from the authorities that are responsible for both monitoring the volcano locally and managing what's happening, and the national parks. When I go up there, I see there's a sign that says the trail is still closed. So of course, I know everybody ignore that, and from what I can see, people going up as usual. So my caution to people who are going up is that I will always advise, especially now, that if you're going up, make sure you're going up with someone who knows the path, somebody, you have a guide. Unless you're familiar with the path, I would not suggest you walk up the volcano. That's the first thing. Bearing in mind that before I said that officially it's supposed to be closed, right?
Right.
And I have nothing to go against that. But I'm saying that in terms of your own personal safety, if you decide to, you should have a guide, or you should know what you're doing. Even for somebody like myself who have done it tons of time, sometimes there are moments when, if conditions are bad, you could start wondering if you're going in the right direction or not. I can't see myself getting lost, but I could see people getting lost, first of all.
Somebody actually got lost.
Yeah. Secondly, right. And secondly, you have to bear in mind that the topmost part of the volcano. So if you go in, most people go from the windward side, from the Georgetown side. And if you know the path, you get to a point where they call Jacob's Wells, the last kind of lava flow before you get to the top. From there all the way up, it's just loose material, very loose. So it's easy to slip and slide. So when you get very right at the top, you kind of have to go down, up and down gullies. The path, in other words, gets more difficult, and most difficult for walking, for normal hike. It's not a normal kind of hike. It's kind of more a hike on a gravel pile, on a pile of stones where you're constantly walking up, and it's trying to make you slide down. So going up is one thing, and then you have to come back down. And coming back down is also challenging because it's so loose. So if you're doing it, get a guide and make sure you have good shoes, make sure you have good conditions for hiking, and be very careful when you're walking, and make sure that you walk carefully, because it's easy to slide. And if you slide, you don't want to have to have a sprained ankle or a broken something at the top of the mountain, because then you have to come back down, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do that. So be careful. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to do it, make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you have a guide if you don't know where you're going, and dress and prepare properly for doing it. And remember, it's closed still. Right?
It is closed.
As far as I know. Right? So as far as I know, but
and there are gullies that are about 1 meter high, which is about 3 feet. So if you're a short person, more than likely you shouldn't even try to take the risk going up there.
So be careful. Yeah. But I mean, and the thing is, eventually it will become really, really as safe as it was before to walk up, and it really is still a beautiful mountain to see. So it's still something I'd encourage Vincentians at least once in your lifetime to do. It's just that unless you have to, you probably could wait another year or two before you do it.
1 year. I'm gonna wait like 5 years. Thereabout. When everything settle and copacetic and everything, and then I'll go up there. Okay, so my final question before we wrap up and give the summary of how we can take advantage of the conference. Is it at the end of everything, when all the debris is settled and whatever has to come down comes down, is the mountain going to be a little higher than before?
Not really, because the highest part of the mountain was not the Soufrière, as we call it. The highest part of Soufrière is actually a little bit north. It's part of Soufrière itself. But if you ever go up to Soufrière, the place where you stand and look in is not the highest part of Soufrière. Highest part of Soufrière is the north of that. And that wasn't in fact affected in any major way by the eruption. So I don't think the height of the mountain is going to change. That's not been affected by the eruption.
Okay. I just thought the entire
I'll tell you that you don't want to be around with eruptions that cause the height to change. they're not so nice. They would be much bigger than the one that you saw. So
Uh, okay, let me take
yeah.
that back. Ooh, thanks for telling us that.
All right.
All right. So, conference, the name of the conference, when it's going to happen, your encouragement for Vincentians.
Right. So we have in this conference called Explosions, Ash and Lahars. It's a University of West Indies Country Conference. It's being held on the 28th and the 30th, 29th and the 30th of March. And it's focused on encouraging people to come and share information, data, research that has been done and experiences that has about the 2020-2021 eruption. So I'd encourage everybody to find out about it. If you want to come, register. If you want to present, make sure you register. Definitely send in a summary of what you want to talk about and look out for it. It should be interesting, I think, certainly for all intentions.
All right. Lovely. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank
I want to
you.
wish you all the best. And I think the conversation we had with the few questions about the actual volcano and post-volcanic eruption,
Yeah.
well, 2 years, almost 2 years on, would be just a glimpse of what is going to happen at the conference, correct?
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. That's a good teaser for folks.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
You too. Take
All
care.
right.
Thanks for
Hope
having
to
me.
see you soon. No problem.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. And there you have it. That was Professor Wade. I forgot to ask about the pig. The pig that was